Messaging Blast technical seminars are an Intertech production. For instructor-led .NET, Java, and XML courses, visit us at www.intertech.com.
Okay, here's one of many places where we can be creating test cases. Just a quick run through of what the process of creating a test case might be like. We're going to come back and do some more of this, but quickly, again, the templates are very much customizable, but all I'm doing is using the Microsoft Agile template here, and all of the fields and the states and that sort of thing are predefined in this template. So it's not just possible, but very likely with your own TFS, you're going to see things look very different. So I'm going to create a test case called I'm going to give it a little better name. I might use this later. Just going to call it an exploratory test. I'm going to leave this set as being assigned to TFS setup. It's kind of strange the path I went down. You see a list of users and user groups within that are configured within TFS, and kind of when I started on preparing for this demonstration, I was running everything as Tim Star, and I was running into security issues more related to the coding side of things. So I ended up adding Tim Star to the TFS setup group, which is an admin. So now the tool is considering me to be TFS setup when I'm checking things in and running things and that sort of thing. Again, I mentioned that the only initial state, this is a configurable thing, but in this template, the only initial state valid for a test case is design. I'm going to set this as a priority 1 test. My automation status is nothing's been automated yet. We're going to go into this in some detail later too, but what I'm doing now is I'm going to create the steps that I want to perform when I'm executing this test case. And this is just an exploratory test. So I'm not really intending to execute anything at all specifically. I just want to kind of poke around the application, see how it behaves, see what I can find, that sort of thing. Down here on the tab, we'll quickly run through the tab here. And again, we're going to come back to that, creating the steps. It's there's quite a few features that I haven't even touched on yet. Tested user stories. This is kind of one of those key things. What I very likely want to be doing when I'm creating a test case is associating it to some kind of a user story or a requirement or something like that. So that's on this tested user stories tab. So I'm going to browse, and there's both the ability to create your own queries, and there's some off-the-shelf queries provided within TFS. And the off-the-shelf query that I'm going to execute is give me all user stories that don't yet have a test case. Just give me 1 sec, Ryan. So then execute, click find. I'm going to execute the test, and even though in reality I'm not on an exploratory test, I'm not typically going to want to associate my test to a specific user story. Or maybe I would. This is where I'd go in and make that association. Go ahead.
Will you be covering lab management virtual server under TFS?
the question is, are we going to be covering the lab management and virtual environments under TFS? And no, that's not something we're going to cover today. Okay, and just quickly running through the tabs, you've got a list of all links, and this is something that kind of builds up as we're executing the test case. We're going to see various bugs and that sort of thing get populated in the list. I can also add attachments here. Maybe I've got some screen diagrams of a prototype of what the application should look like in this area, or maybe I've got some raw requirements or something like that, some instructions or SQL scripts that I might need to run, something like that. And again, the associated automation, I didn't mention this earlier. Obviously, I'm using Visual Studio 2010. I'm on the release candidate, and this particular tab is something I've seen change quite a bit between beta 1 and now, and I'm not sure where it's going to land, so I'm not even going to mention what's going on in this tab for the moment, because I suspect that at the actual release time it's going to look a little bit different than this. Okay, so now I've created my test case called an exploratory test. I can copy it. If you're creating test cases that are similar, you can create copies of them, change a few steps. You can imagine, too, that this list of test cases can grow enormously as you use the application over time. So creating a filter as you're working in here is probably something you're going to want to do fairly often, or as a matter of process, excuse me. So, for example, if I want to just look at test cases that were activated in the last 30 days, here's one of those querying capabilities, and we're going to see this sort of query capability all over the place, and it's going to look very similar and something as you use this tool, you're going to get very comfortable with. Okay, Shared Step Manager. I'm not going to go into it in much detail now. We're going to come back through it when we're walking through sort of a more realistic scenario. I personally think that using these shared steps is going to be one of the keys to having a very robust suite of tests. What we're going to see is, as you change test cases, we're going to be creating something called action recordings. What we're going to see is, as you modify the steps in a test case, you're going to be forced to recreate the action recording. And a way to minimize what you need to recreate is to break down some of your longer tests into test cases. And secondly, you can imagine that when you're testing an application, there's certain scenarios that you run through all the time. For example, launching the application and logging in is just something you do every time. It's something that's not going to change very often. So what you can do is create these shared steps, go in and record these actions one time, and use them in multiple different tests. And I'm not even going to go over these menu options right now. We're going to go through them, I think, in enough detail later. Another question?
Is there a linkage between SketchFlow and the VS 2010 test?
Is there a linkage between SketchFlow and 2010 test? I'm sorry, I'm not sure. At the beginning of the presentation and the end of the presentation, I had my email address up. If you want to go ahead and email me that question, I'll do my best to get back to you as soon as possible. This sort of thing is something I do on my own time, so if it's an urgent question, I'm also going to have a slide with some other links. You can post that out on the Visual Studio 2010 Microsoft Managed forums. And again, I'll have a link to that at the end of the slideshow. Okay, so we're done with the organize Center group, and that's going to bring us over to the Planning Center group. And what I've done, probably behind the scenes, is I've already determined what test plan is the focus, is configured for the test and lab manager here. The way you would set that is right up here on the toolbar here. There's a little home icon. When you click on the home icon, this is both where you can change your test plans. This is where you can change your team project. I happen to only have one test plan in an active state, so I'm going to be using my 2010 webcast test plan.
For more free learning resources and to see the latest lineup of our instructor-led .NET, Java, and XML courses, visit us at www.intertech.com.